Yeah, we're live. Emily, how you doing? You back?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm back. We got Hawthorne race 4 going in the gates, 4-horse field, so nothing too crazy there. But yeah, we got Oakland running, Hawthorne running, back from the NHC, caught up on the notes. Feel like I feel like I did very good. I think
I
people
know the
forget
feeling.
about that. I don't know. I had such a hard time sleeping in Vegas. There was like one night, one just broke through the gate at Hawthorne. I'm saying this out loud so I can write it. Oh shit, talking to myself. Uh, there, I so there was like one night I was asleep and I was like thinking about notes, or I was like looking at races or something. And I remember you sent out something a while ago, like how many notes we've done.
Mm,
And I remember it was like we were like closing in on like a million, like
right.
earlier this year,
Yeah.
right? And then I was like, I know you sent me one that was like, how many have I done?
Right.
It's like one of these things, like it doesn't matter except for the fact that I'm lying in bed, like can't fall asleep, and like, what else am I gonna do with my life? Um, and you sent one that was like June 2020 up until I think July of last year. It was like 18 months of notes. And I had done like 58,400 like notes.
Notes.
But no
How,
big deal. But cat,
how good of a handicap has that made you, though? That discipline.
yeah, it's insane. Ridiculous.
That just kind of leads right into our triple crown because I mean, you really do need notes, and I think you've proven, the edge you have on these races because I mean, what was it? Last couple of weeks, especially like I guess the latest one was about 2 weeks ago. When we did the Gotham and
Yeah.
the Battaglia, and we'll get to the Battaglia when we talk about the Jeff Ruby Stakes, but the Gotham, right? I mean, you're on the 11 horse, big balloons. I think that horse paid like $59, and we're on the two too,
Yeah,
but
on
that
the
horse
two
kind
ran
of
huge.
lost the rider at the gate, but he still ran huge. Uh, yeah, I mean, we just that was kind of the third one in like 3 weeks where you had double digit odds winning. So kudos, and it's really it's getting underneath and doing the kind of work you're doing. It's tough, but I mean that's the way you're gonna have to do it if you want to get to those kinds of horses. And we do the work for you, right, Emily?
Yeah.
And that's what we try to do here: show you how to kind of apply it.
And it's, and the thing, this is what got me talking about this, because we were talking about this right before we went on, is this process. And this is something that like from the exercise science world, and like people don't know this, like I was like very early on in like the CrossFit days, not CrossFit now, but like very early on, like working like with some of the first people involved. And it was always like these results. So prior to that, like working in fitness, everything was just kind of like you just count to 15 reps, and like based on the science, that's going to create hypertrophy, which is like growth in the muscle, strength, this set, whatever. But like CrossFit was like really enforced like results that are measurable, observable, repeatable, right? Like if you can do the same workout faster or with more weight, we can recognize this, we can chart it, we can measure it, we can see progress as far as getting faster, right? So like with doing notes, it's the same thing. Like for you, it's like all of these notes that go in, it's not just, they're not just like descriptors. Yeah, there's parts that are descriptors, but it's stuff that's like it's measurable, it's observable, it's repeatable. We do it over and over again. We're able to track it, we're able to measure it, we're able to see the impact of these type of things. Now it does get tougher because you've done like, how do certain words impact, which is great. It's super good to have that feedback. But as we've noticed by doing that, sometimes like the trainers will run horses in the wrong spot, or a layoff will follow, or a horse will have another trip, or whatever, right?
Right.
Like
Yep.
there's other factors that,
Situational things happen, right? It's just like
yeah, because it's horse racing, right? Like the horse can't go, oh, I need an extra week. Like,
right.
like, like, I'm not feeling it today, coach. Like you don't have that type of like feedback. But um yeah, it's you know, it's huge. And I think that, you know, that horse racing as a whole needs to kind of take that same type of approach, as far as like, you know, there's a lot of doing the same things over and over and over again. And if you're measuring them, you're realizing that what that's doing isn't doing much. And then there are things that are impacting that, because you're not measuring it, or because you're not, you know, it's not resonating, we're not able to repeat that and grow, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. A really good point. And you know, we've been like this from the beginning. I mean, we kind of hone notes by kind of doing over and over and with each other and kind of reviewing things and all the rest to get to this point. You know, it took a lot of effort. And I think, you know, it's underappreciated sometimes, not by us, but like some people will underappreciate it because, you know, people that don't really use it, because they just see, oh, there's a word or two, and, you know, that's, what is that? But we're taking that extra step, to your point, to interpret what we're seeing, right? And try to put it in a format so that an end user can apply it going forward. And I think the other thing we show you is, not only do we do these, but we show you how to use it in what context, and especially in these Triple Crown races, where you have races where, like, you know, you look at this plot of the Gotham, it was kind of really messy, right? And you have all these horses that haven't run at this distance before, all this stuff going on. And so we kind of really relied on notes to see who might be, you know, able to peak at the right time. And again, it's all situational. It's that race. It's not some race in the future. It's that race. And, you know, I think it just gives us an edge. And so it's, like I always say, it's more like Cliff Notes than in the book. You know, like I read Hamlet. I didn't understand how to get Cliff Notes. Oh, that's what they meant. Okay, that's cool. And I just think that's what we mean when we do the notes. We're trying to interpret things for you, so that we take some of that work out of it. Because, yeah, you can describe things all you want, but you know, what does that mean?
Yeah, it gets so noisy, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what are you trying to do with it?
right,
You know,
right.
and you know, you hear that too. Like, a lot of the public handicappers, though, will just, you know, last out, finish second. They're tight. They were off slow. They were making up ground late. Well, what does that mean? What does that
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like, does that mean they're going to move forward? Does that mean that they're a bad gate horse? Does that mean it was the right? Like, what? I don't know what that means. I don't know
yeah,
what you're trying to tell me, and like, I don't know how that applies to today's race.
right. You
And
need context.
then one step further, now you're telling me that horse is, you know, 4 to 5. Why? I
Right,
don't,
right, right.
you
I
know?
mean, and you know, like we've seen it before. A horse could have all that trouble, but it could be a hard race. You know, in other words, it could take something out of the horse. And, you know, unless you're kind of taking that extra step, looking at it, and to your point, not only just looking at it, but measuring it and kind of to get to some kind of repeatable. And yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. Situations change, right? So, you know, you may have a horse that's, you know, comes into that race, you know, we think he's going to peak, but, you know, might be in the wrong spot, wrong surface, wrong distance, all the other handicapping factors you have to factor in. But, you know, it'd be good to know, hey, yeah, that was a really good race. He kind of overcome trouble, but that was kind of a hard race. And now he's coming back in, you know, 15 days. That might be a regression, right? Where
Mhm,
everyone's kind of
mhm.
zigging, you're zagging, you know, to some extent. So, yeah, so this, you know, this was the Gotham. It was kind of messy, just from a Triple Crown perspective. That way, I didn't. I mean, I thought the 11 ran a good race, but I'm not seeing any Triple Crown kind of favorites coming out of the Gotham. I don't know what your impressions of the race was. I thought the 11 ran really well, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know, as we kind of keyed on, as far as the 11, and then, you know, and the 2 too, a horse that you picked up from those
I'm
notes.
sorry, the 12. I keep saying the 11. It was the 12 that won the race. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
12.
no, I think the 11 finished second or so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
My
guess it's
bad.
on there.
Raise,
But yeah,
raise.
but we showed. I don't know if you want to pull up the grid there, but that's really where it came from. Is looking at that horse, saying, okay, here's a horse that was able to show some ability early on, and actually, this is going to kind of come into play when we look at the Louisiana Derby. But for now, a horse that showed ability early on, was like kind of just moving forward. You could make some excuses, and where they were just sitting on a peak effort.
Yeah.
Is the horse going to be good enough? We're going to find out, but the horse is going to be a big price, and know that horse is sitting on a big effort. And with some others in this field that were a little sus, that horse just made sense.
Yeah. So I don't think it was a strong race. Looking at last week's Tampa Bay Derby, Emily, Tapit Trice, who I liked, we talked about in one of the previous seminar videos about his stride.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really struggling, I thought, during the race. And when you just kind of watched him, like kind of on the turn, you say, there's no way this horse wins this race. I mean, he's really wide. He doesn't look like he's really handling the track. And then he kicks that stride. And I mean, that stride is just, I mean, again, I looked at the charts, and it's like incredible the amount of ground this horse covers. And, you always worry about a horse like this, takes a while to get his momentum up and stuff. I would like to see him a little bit more forward in races, show a little bit more speed. But I'll tell you, if he can ever figure that out, he can really cover ground. And, especially when you kind of look at races like, the mile and a quarter, the Derby, and especially the Belmont, the mile and a half. This horse is definitely a contender in those types of distance races. He's a marathoner, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's like, depending on where they end up going, how long he stays in training, maybe grass to run those.
He could just run all day, and maybe he handles that better. I don't know, but
yeah, because I mean, in the Tampa Bay Derby, there was a moment where you're like, this horse isn't hitting the board.
Right. I mean, exactly. Like he is nowhere. I didn't track the ground loss, but I mean, it was surmountable. I was like, my goodness, and he's different from Mo Donegal, right? Who last year was kind of another distance horse for Pletcher, because that horse was much more tactical than this horse,
Yeah.
And so he's not. No, if anyone's trying to make that comparison, I think it's wrong.
Agree.
So, but
we even had to kind of tell the connections. It's not a closer necessarily.
Yeah. So we're going to look at the Louisiana Derby and the Jeff Ruby Stakes. We'll start with the Louisiana Derby, Emily. This is the plot for the race, and he, to me, one thing that, and we talked about this before, is like, how the 10 always kind of plots well. He kind of really plots really well. Like he kind of just stands out, the number 10 here, right in the middle, big square. And what I like to do is, like, when we'll go kind of horse by horse, Emily, and then I'll say the morning line. We'll have a discussion about it should be higher, lower, or kind of the right range for the horse. So it should be like within range, within like a maybe a 10-15% range, or is this horse on the edge? Should be higher, should be lower, and we'll just do that way. I think that at least give us kind of a baseline for the race.
And there's one thing you said just before that. There's two things I want to point out here, because I see Sheldon's in the chat, and he was asking me at the NHC about quadrant 3 horses. So we're going to talk about quadrant 3 horses in this race. And then you mentioned Dennington, and this is something that you tweeted out yesterday. And then I had a comment on it earlier as far as plot changes, and Dennington being that type of horse, because he is one that tends to always plot well, but he does have a change for this race a little bit, where he's moving from like kind of quad 3, quad 2 to quad 1. Now his quad 1 is a little borderline, but just those are a couple things that have just come up, as far as people that are learning optics and they get the improved note from me that are actually taking that step forward and getting a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the big thing when you look at a plot, like a plot that looks good, like a quadrant 1 square or something like that, I think the first thing you want to do is say, do you think the horse, when you start doing your form cycle analysis, or class analysis, is this horse moving up, or could this horse regress, right? Because I think what you're seeing is probably his best, could be his best form, and that's what you want to just if you see a horse that kind of plots like this and you think he's got upside, then you really shouldn't lean in on him, right? But if you see a horse like this and say, he might have peaked, or maybe this is maybe he's moving up now or something. But if you see a horse with a good plot and you think that maybe he didn't get to his upside yet, that's when you want to really lean. That's the way I approach it.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So we'll go horse by horse. But the other thing I want to say about the plot, I thought, and I got to be careful because this is another plot fit that's red, so it's a hard one. But I thought this race, and when we look at this, a lot of horses come out of the Risen Star, and the plot looked a little bit similar, maybe a little bit more messier. That race, I thought, lent itself to horses coming from off the pace. And this race, to me, looks like there's a potential where maybe some of the early pace horses look better, just because it looks like maybe if some of these, like if the 3 to 11 could run better and get some more separation early, maybe the 6 might sit a good trip. I just thought maybe this race, especially with the longer distance, the pace dynamic may be different. And I'm just thinking maybe the horses forwardly placed might have an edge in a race like this. But I don't know. Let's go through it and we can gauge. But that's just my initial assessment. Okay. So let's go. You want to start with the favorite, or you want to go through this? You want to start with the Instant Coffee? Who's 2-1?
Sure. Yeah. I think, we can kind of work that way if you want, kind of go inside out as far as the morning line. I like doing it that way. Okay.
So this horse is 2-1 morning line favorite. Comes out of the Lecomte, which came back a pretty good race, Emily. You could go on about this horse. I'm just going to bring this up. The Lecomte has come back solid. The Rebel winner came out of that race. Risen Star show horse. The show horse, I think, was the Battaglia. And then all 4 runners were in the money. So it was a legitimate race for what it's worth. My concern with this horse would be the distance. I'm still not, this is the longest of the preps, right? It's 9.5 furlongs. I think, well, I guess, I don't know, maybe the Dubai race is, I'm not sure. Maybe it's the same. But that'd be my one concern for this horse. And I thought he got flow. And then the other thing about this horse is, especially in a 12 horse field like this, he's not forward. And, when you have a run style like that, you leave yourself vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So as a horse for me that I would say, I would maybe try to bet against. He's a good horse, comes out of a legitimate race, but I think from a favorite standpoint, I may play against him. What about you?
Yeah, I think he's had that in his 2 most recent starts that are the wins. Obviously, we don't know as far as the maiden race, but in the KYJC as well as the Lecomte, they were races that set up for kind of his style and just sort of in the right race, in the right time. And this is a class test. We look at, Optix figure range, you look at the trips, a horse that tends to break slow, he's going to move her to an inner post today. So the fact that he's been free, the fact that he's been wide in those races, and now he's going to be behind horses, maybe a little bit further back, especially as you mentioned, kind of that race flow, wanting to favor horses forwardly placed, where trip is going to have to come into play. And in those races where he's been able to benefit from maybe being the quote unquote best horse, it's pretty tough to say he's the best horse in this race at this point, because there's a lot of horses that stack right up with him.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the second choice is the 4. Mm-hmm. And this is the horse that won the Risen Star. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. This was a race. Again, the Risen Star really favored horses off the pace in that race. Just you could look at where the horses who won, will finish first, second, third, and fourth, where they came from, and he was one of those. He did get traffic. I don't know. He's like 16-1 in that race, and now he's going to go longer. May not get the same pace dynamic. He's coming off a peak effort. I would say higher than 5-1 in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And as people that follow I'm a fan of this horse. I don't make future bets, and I actually have one on Sun Thunder just because the number was too crazy to just not kind of take a stab at that point. But going into the Risen Star, and again, just following the notes. This is the horse I was talking. This is the horse I was kind of when we were talking about.
Oh yeah, there's another one, a 16-1 shot that you came up with. Yeah. So.
Yeah. As far as form cycle and where horses are kind of, moving into the right places at the right time, and recognizing that for Sun Thunder in the Southwest, that was not the race that they were looking for, but they just needed to move forward. And that coming into the Risen Star was the race that they're like, okay, this is the spot we're going to find out how good this horse is. And he ran very well. I don't think he needs to be that far off the pace. I think they're going to actually try to ride him a little bit closer to the pace today, because again, going back to what I was saying earlier, I don't think at this point, I think they got to get some points, right? Because I know the Derby is the goal. But that is the goal. That's where they're going to have this particular horse peaked, is in the Derby. So winning here, sitting on his best effort, is maybe not the case. Again, I think they probably are going to experiment keeping this horse a little bit closer to the pace. Something they're going to need for the Derby. He's not a horse that's like a one-run closer, but he's going to have to learn something a little bit more getting out of the gate, and look for that trip in here. So to your point, as far as the value, I would want a little bit more than 5-1. So in this particular race,
sure.
But I think that he's going to get a good effort, top 3 finish, one I'm not leaving out of that mix for sure either.
Agreed. The next horse is 6-1, and this is the Pletcher horse. This horse won his maiden race, and then I looked at that race. I think we had a different note there.
I'm glad you fixed that.
Yeah.
If it would have been me. So yeah.
Looked like he inherited the lead when the speed came back, and then he kind of repelled a late challenge and kind of won off. But there was nothing in that race that was really running late. So I think it looked better than it did, and he kind of different than some of the other Pletcher horses physicality wise too. I don't he's not all that big. Some of most of Pletcher's horses is the size. At least my initial impression of him, I didn't dig in, but he didn't look all that big. And so I don't know. I'm just a little bit, it's class, it's distance, a couple of things he's got to kind of handle here. I do know that though, when that first race he ran, there was a horse that came back and won a maiden just recently, and I thought it was a really good effort. Ran a huge Optix Fig. Came back and won out of that race. So that was a good maiden race, good maiden win. But that was it, Gulfstream, one turn. I don't know. He's got to show me something. So I'm at least 6-1. I don't know. I would say higher.
Yeah, much higher.
So that's the number 6. Since all these other horses are kind of in different kinds of thing, I'm going to start at the beginning again so we can go through this. This horse is 12-1. Got the flow last time, I thought. They close. I see he got a close, but when I kind of looked at it was a very fast. If you look at the race shape.
I know, but at the fairgrounds,
yeah. This was Oklahoma.
Trust my. Oh well, okay. Still, I think both those. Sometimes there's, I don't know. I know what you're saying, but sometimes it's not as clear as that.
Okay. I just look at the number; it was kind of low, and he kind of got flow in when he won his maiden win. It's a good time. I mean, good figure. I just think this is a big class challenge. I would say definitely north of 12-1 for me.
Yeah.
I
mean, in his best race being, forwardly placed, really.
Yeah. So it's like,
and again, a horse that has gate issues and he's drawn the rail. So
yeah, exactly.
Make sure you're getting at least fair odds.
Curly Jack, the only thing I think in this scenario he'll maybe be forwardly placed, but he's not fast enough, right, to win this race.
Yeah, I mean the race that he would have run kind of his peak race out of would have been last out, right? Where he was coming
Yeah,
out of the KYJC, he was coming off the layoff. And you know, again, the grades are powerful, right? Going back to like the very first thing that we're talking about, because it gives you an overall assessment of where that horse stacks up at the level and against the level of competition. And that horse running a C plus is like average, right? Like
right.
it's without any like improve or needed the race. It's like it just shows that like it's just not he's just not there. It hasn't really shown much progression. So that was Charles B asked, does the 3 catch a better race now? I I just don't know where it's going to come from because it's like he's had the chance to improve and just hasn't.
If I own this horse, you know what I'm pointing him to? The Pad Day Mile, Churchill.
Okay.
Because he likes Churchill. I think the 1 turn is going to be okay for this horse. I think that's the right spot for this horse, the Pad Day Mile. They run that, I think, on the day. I think they run it on the
Derby Day.
They run it on. I don't even know when they run it just before they do run it on Derby Day. Now I'm not even sure.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, but I just think that might be the right spot for this horse.
Yeah.
But he could run improved there. Just the fact that he's fast, he may be forward and maybe hang around. I don't know. Just doesn't look fast enough to win. We talked about Sun Thunder, Disarm. Okay, so this is a horse that's 10-1. I found this horse a little bit interesting. What about you?
Absolutely, and this is for Sheldon out there. Quad 3. We're gonna do it. Quad 3.
Okay. Yeah, so this horse handled kickback in his first race, and then he came back and broke his maiden in Saratoga. And among the horses in that race was Rocket Can, right?
Yeah,
who won the Florida.
Strong.
Yeah. So that's this horse showed ability early on, came back off 197-day layoff, and an allowance coming and improved. I love that. With these younger horses, I love to see them keep going forward. It was the first time 2 turns for this horse. I think this horse is set up for maybe another move forward. The only thing, again, like some of the others in here, I'm just worried about his gait tact. The issues with the gait. It's always a problem, especially in a big field. They can get buried. But this horse is 10-1, and I think he's got some value to him.
Mm-hmm. One of the horses from that race just won at Oaklawn Park like 2 races ago.
The February 19th race at Oaklawn, that race? Yeah.
One earlier on the card.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the rider change, having the tactical speed, that was his first race back after 197 days. Again, it's like one of these other horses. It's probably not the race they're pointing to. Obviously encouraged by that race to run here in the Louisiana Derby. And the other thing I will note is this combination of Rosario Asmussen, as far as them teaming up at Oaklawn Park, it's been powerful. So that just intent with that rider change, I don't know what it's going to show on paper, if that's going to be like that's going to look good or not. I don't know. But from that combination at Oaklawn Park, those horses are live, very live.
Okay, let's talk about. I'm going to bring up the plot. Let's talk about Quadrant 3.
Okay.
Okay, and let me just give you my opinion on Quadrant 3, and then you can chime in, Emily.
Okay.
So Quadrant 3, what you want, I think, in Quadrant 3 is horses. First of all, you want horses that run squares. Okay, they could square on Quadrant 3, and you want horses either who could finish, like come off the pace. So you don't want like an E or an EP, a horse that needs to be a length within the lead. That's kind of detrimental because he's lower on the y-axis. So if a horse that needs to be like within a length of the lead or on the lead, it's kind of negative. Okay. Now there's one exception to that. And you saw it the other day. I tweeted this one out, actually, as when I interpret some plots from, it was from Gulfstream. When you see that Quadrant 1 empty, and you see a horse down in Quadrant 3 that's kind of leftmost and it's a square, that horse has a chance to wire the field and back up the whole field because there's no other pace. So this horse could just kind of inherit the lead. So that's a good scenario. An empty Quadrant 1 with a square in Quadrant 3. Right? That's one scenario. It's kind of more rare. The other scenario is you want a horse that can either press or close that could sit closer to the pace than maybe normal, maybe get, horse could maybe be, forward lead fourth, fifth, and be able to close. But you don't want that horse that really needs the lead or needs to be within 1 or 2 lengths of the lead and is way down there and you got a bunch of horses up in quadrant 1. That's my analysis. And, that's kind of looking at data for a long time. In fact, I did a video on this about quadrant 3. So, it's somewhere. Maybe I'll pull it up and send it out. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on quadrant 3, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything to add. That's pretty much what I was talking about in person, just kind of that type of scenario. But I think that probably what I left out and the most important is just really based on the run style, because that's key. And then again, for this type of scenario, and just going back to what we're saying about the race, of this favoring a horse that has some tactical speed, finishing ability, and then even though we have horses that are in quadrant 1, as shown on the plot, as far as the run style match, there's really no ease, right? And there's
only the 11, really. Yeah,
the 11 being kind of an EP type. So, it is kind of a lighter quad 1, considering that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, this horse could, stalk and and again, we talked about the other thing is looking at the pace. The pace doesn't look all that hot. The speed rating, the contention is kind of light. So yeah, so I would say five is horse I'm kind of like I think is showing the most value here. I don't know if that was the horse you were on to, Emily, but sounds
it was
like
one of the horses. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so the 6 is we went through the 6. The 7 was one we didn't go through. Emily, why don't you take? What do you think about the 7?
I just think the 7's a good horse, but he's a little bit light for this level. I know the speed figures are going in the right direction, which is a positive, but could be a case where the horse peaked in the second start of the form cycle. And again, just kind of leaning on the grades. I mean, this is a step up in class, running a B- last out in non-winners of 1 allowance company. Isn't going to cut it. It's had those gate issues. So again, it's a good horse. Maybe turns into kind of a wise guy type pick. Maybe a horse that's able to get kind of a minor share, but I think is an outsider as far as like one I can look at as like a strong.
Yeah, he's 12-1. I think he should be higher. I mean, not much, but I think that's that's about right. 12 to 15-1. I think this horse, but I think this horse might be a suspect at the distance though. Kind of lost ground in stretch in 2 races, So he's one I'm a little. How's he plot actually? I mean, kind of like here he is.
Like a I mean, just in terms of morning. I mean,
I would say higher for me, than the 12. The 8. What about the 8?
The 8 is a move up big time, because that last race I thought was really good in the Risen Star. Now I know you have it as like the race flow, so I think that kind of flattered, but just again the overall visuals, it looked like a horse that was just on the improve, and could take a step forward. Could just
you think you can make another step forward now? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, if it was like a horse that was like 5-1, I'd probably be a little bit more suspect on him. But I think that he's going to be double what the morning line is. Maybe.
He's 15-1.
Yeah, I mean, it was 40-1 last out. Maybe get some attention just based on, just sort of already sending out a long shot. But I think he's a long shot in this race. He's a long shot to win. I don't like him as much as I like Confidence Game as a win contender. But I think he's another one that's going to run. They're going to run a good race. So I kind of keep in the mix.
Yeah. But sometimes the only thing I get concerned about is like a horse, who's running. His early figures are kind of low, and then he's like, I'm just saying, really, does he have much more upside? I mean, 72, 75, 84, 80, 75, right? In his 2-year-old races, and then bang. That's my only concern is like this. Did he kind of peak already? That would be my one concern about him. The 9. He was again the part of the Risen Star. He's got a nice improving line. I got really no knocks with this horse. This is this is the Cox horse. Yeah, I don't, he's 10-1. I think that's, that's a good odds. I mean, I'm 8-1, fine. I think he's a good price. There's some value here with this horse if he's anywhere near that. I think he'll be lower, but I don't know.
I think he'll be lower too.
Third race off a left, good improved line. Was wide in that common race. Yeah, get the race over the track. Interesting, Franco to take this mount then.
Oh, Franco rode him on debut.
Yeah, it's kind of just ship it in here. So I guess So that's good for Franco. He's a solid rider.
Yeah, I mean Drew's on the other one, so.
Yeah, that one kind of interests me a little bit. We talked about Dennington's plot. He looks solid in the plot.
But to your point, could be flattered off that most recent race, that upgrading his plot because it's such a shift from the races before.
Yes, yeah, and a good warm up. Maybe that they were intent with that race. Obviously, get him into this race. He looked good pre-race. Yeah, I mean, I probably could. He's 12-1. So I mean, obviously consider him for underneath, but. Because I would hate not to have him in the mix in my exotics with that plot. But like we said, it could be because of that last race was a big thing. This interesting horse, Emily. I don't know. You got a drop on this horse, and I guess a lot depends on what the weather is going to be like, right? Because it just seems like he's too sloppy. Race tracks, and not all sloppy tracks are alike. So,
well, no, his other one wasn't that great.
No, they're terrible, right? I'm just saying it's sloppy race.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you get a dry track, this horse is going to be forwardly placed. And you talk about like when we talk about the 10 having the bad, his plot looks really good. I think this horse plot looks kind of big, a big circle, and I think that's maybe a little bit, reflected in some of, especially that race, at Churchill, right, where he couldn't handle the track, and then he was forward in that Southwest, which I think was one of the better races so far, the Southwest, and he had a little bit of trouble there. So you got the drop. I don't know, this horse. I mean, I think he can if he can get forward, without a lot of work. I mean, and that might be the case because I don't think there's a lot of speed in this race. I think he can improve, and he can run a good race. And maybe get a piece of it.
Well, I mean, to both your points there, as far as the drop and then the Southwest being a strong race, you could argue the Southwest is a stronger race than this, and technically this is a drop.
Yeah, that's a good point because Arabian line would be what 4 to 5.
Your note going back to the debut at Ellis. I think this is you. Could be a nice one. I don't know if that's you.
No, that was Donald. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah. So I just think this horse has got and he's 12-1. So I think that's another one. That's one of my other value horses. Those are my 5 and 11 are my value players. And then baseline beat. I think this horse is 20-1. I think he should probably be double that. He's an improving horse, but I mean he's got to step up. He's got to get faster, and he's already made a really big leap. He's going to have to make another really big leap. He's getting stuck way out there. He's got no pace early, so I don't know. What's your impression?
Yeah, no, agreed. Doesn't have any early pace. He's kind of been flow aided in those races. He's a maiden stepping up. Even his speed figures at this point, even though they're improving, it's not the huge. He'd have to take another step forward in here, which is a reach. And then the connections as far as Pessin did have some live runners at the fairgrounds in those months. So a horse we might have already seen the best of, and that even if he shows up with that race, it's probably not much better than 4th, right?
Yeah.
Quick comment here. David Barista, incredible artist. Thanks for chiming in. Hated Jace Road in the Southwest, but looking at this race, I thought maybe he needs a lead and actually gets it. Yeah, I mean, that would be. I think that would be like a crime if they don't take the lead in here from that post in this race shape.
Yeah, agreed. So for me, it's 5 and 11 look like the value. I think we both agree that Instant Coffee looks vulnerable as the favorite. He's a nice horse. Don't get me wrong, but I just I think you can to
No
play
doubt.
against him.
Yeah.
And anything else? No?
Sun Thunder running an honest race.
Yep.
You mentioned the 9. I thought was one of the horses that you liked.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that covers it. I think, but for both of us, I mean, Disarm, I think, is kind of the key in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so we're gonna go to Turfway. Another kind of wacky plot. You get some, you got about 2 horses coming out of the Battaglia in this race, Emily. But the plot is, tough, right? Because you got horses that trying the surface for the first time. That's why you got all those triangles. People don't understand what those little triangles mean. It means that we're unable to plot that horse for that surface and distance. So that's why you see that. So it's messy, right? I mean, another race where I don't think there's a ton of pace. So when you kind of look at the 4, that's the horse that's got some potential, I guess, maybe to work out a trip.
It looks solid in here, no?
Whoop.
Doesn't the 4 looks pretty solid?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just see he's got the ability to work out maybe the trip here and get forward. So yeah, I would agree with you. I guess who's the favorite? I'm a little surprised. I guess the 1 is the. Don't you think the 4? I thought the 4 would be the favorite actually in this race.
I thought so too. I thought so too. When I'm looking at it real quick, I was like, this horse seems. And then Sheldon with a quick reference: quadrant 1 empty, quadrant 3 big square. Like, yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's look at him. Let's go to him first, and then we'll go to the favorite. One of my favorite, which is Pletcher. I mean, I think it's like an automatic for Pletcher to be a favorite in all these races. Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think that it was kind of a fruitful race, that the race he comes out of last race. I thought that Stakes, even though it wasn't graded, I thought it was a pretty good, solid race that he comes out of. His only bad race was, I guess, in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup with the dirt, Keeneland. But other than that, his 3 kind of synthetics races have been, 2 synthetic races have been really good. Going to be forward again. So, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely a solid contender in here. 90. Let's look at the 1 here, just for a comparison standpoint. It looks like this horse could handle dirt and turf, so I would assume that he can handle synthetic. But he looks more of a turf horse, I guess. And we talked about this before. I'm like, turf doesn't actually equal synthetic, so it's not like an automatic.
Mm-hmm.
He got a good trip last time at Kitten Joy. It's kind of interesting spot for this horse.
I think that. Sorry to cut you off, but that's sort of what it is for me. It's like this horse has been kind of, moved up on the turf, and they've been running well, and it just kind of feels like, let's try him here for the points.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not like a lot of these other horses that are kind of like, all right, we've done the synthetic, let's try to get some points and kind of sneak our way into the Derby that way. But this one's sort of just kind of like, let's give it a try. Like, what do we have to lose, right? Which is not really, when you're at a short price, something that gets you overly excited.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of intent is part of when you're trying to read into a horse. You try to read the intent, try to follow along. So I think you're right. I think that was kind of my thing about it. So he's got the class. He could win, but I think he's going to be much shorter than the 5-2, just because of the connections and the turf. The turf class. But not a horse that I want to be taking. I don't know.
Yeah, the morning line in here is weird. Because I think both of us expected the 4 to be shorter. I think once we get to the 11, that looks like a horse that could be shorter as well. The 10 will take money. So I don't know. I don't know if the public is going to think that the 1 just lays over this field. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they're going about this race.
Yeah.
To be honest. This is one of the horses that was in the Battaglia. I thought this horse ran pretty well. I thought the two horses that ran in that race. I just don't know, how good that race was, because. But I think they both ran well enough in that race. They both got kind of flow, but this horse had trouble, right? This horse did get kind of jammed up on the turn, and I think it would have been a much closer outcome with him and the other one. So it'd be interesting to see, price wise, because this one's 15 to 1 in the morning line. And I'm sorry, where's that other horse?
The 8.
The 8. That horse is 5 to 1, and for me. I would prefer the 2 over the 8 in terms of any kind of exotics and stuff. I just think you're going to be much more value with the 2. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean the 8. The case that I made for the 8 the last time had to do with the race shape and the fact that the 8 had so much buried form that he was going to get overlooked, and he fit like perfectly in that race, and clearly he ran to it. But that was a spot. It was a spot where he was like not exposed, and now he's exposed, right?
Yeah. That was another, I forgot to mention, that's another 16 to 1 shot you mentioned.
Yeah, and then I like the Scooby as well horse. So yeah, but both those horses ran kind of, that was the day that going into that race was sort of the time for both those horses to kind of run races.
I think Scooby's okay. I think Scooby more lightly raced. I think he might have a little bit more upside than this one. So I mean, if I was going to use any one of my exotics, I'd be using Scooby over Congruent. Okay. The 3, just think this horse is kind of on the decline. We thought this horse would want shorter. He's going to get longer. He's trying.
He makes this. Yeah, he makes this move, and he did this in Turfway in both those races where he like makes this middle move, and then he kind of flattens out a little bit. So the Pat Day Mile, run this horse there too. Yeah. Another one that
the Pat Day Mile
could be. Yeah, well, that's why I mentioned it because he looks kind of like he has that 1-turn mile, and he has that really strong middle move, and that's kind of what, like, is catching people's eye, but then stamina catches up to him late.
Yeah, he's 15 to 1. I like, 2 is better, much better value for me than that at the same price. We talked about the 4. He's 6 to 1. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
get anywhere near that. Okay. The 5 broke his maiden at Aqueduct. That was a 5-horse field.
Mm-hmm.
No lead, no line. Now you can ask this horse go 2 turns the first time. Synthetic, 9 furlongs.
Looks like he was disqualified last out.
Was that? Yeah.
Looks like he was disqualified.
Yeah, because he was drifting.
Okay.
Maker's good at stretching his horse out, but I mean, not for me. Especially he's 12 to 1, but I'm not seeing it. Any other thing about that horse?
No, I'm with you. I mean, the state bred races stepping up here. We shall see. No.
Okay, so this horse broke his maiden. 9 kind of an 87. Is going to try. And that was on turf. It was a good race, but I mean, now he's trying synthetic for the first time. He's got some back numbers, but they were sprinting at Churchill. I mean, this horse is 30 to 1.
This horse is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this
horse is very interesting.
I mean, it's a big price.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big price.
What happened? What happened with this horse? He was improving sprinting. I mean, really. I mean, you could make a case, honestly. This isn't that crazy of a case that he's not a fan of the Gulfstream Park main track. So,
yeah.
X out 1203, X out 101. And that horse is.
Is this horse doing any kind of, let me see if he's got any kind of works on the synthetic here. Just interesting to see.
Because he ran well on the Churchill main, and he ran well on the Gulfstream turf. So he can handle varied surfaces just as long as it's not the Gulfstream Park main.
But which some horses just don't.
That's a kickback, right? That
Yeah.
goes to main track that has that weird kickback.
Yeah, on the turn.
Yeah.
Look at this too. Look at this extended note. You got to read these sometimes. Not much from the back doing anything. Okay, close and decent gallop out.
Yeah.
So you could say he's on an improving line too. I thought that turf race was a strong race. I don't know. He could do worse than the exotics, 30-1.
That race is okay. That race came back not strong, but the horses that were supposed to run well out of that race did so. For what it's worth.
Yeah, I don't know if it wasn't a key race, but I thought it was strong for the day and
yes,
the pace times and all the rest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bluebird's over.
Too slow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little too slow. He's only 15-1.
I see Queen's Plate.
Congruent we talked about.
Yeah.
Escapeologist just looks too slow to me. I don't know. He's gonna have to really move up.
Yeah, his perfect.
Especially fairgrounds. I mean, fairgrounds in Oaklawn.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he had a perfect trip last out. Yeah, no, and they were going to run him for 50,000 in that maiden claiming event, vet scratch. So some class questions. Yeah.
2 fills. Weren't you on this horse last time?
No.
No, you weren't. Okay.
No, I was
All
against this one because he had like a negative plot. He had like a big circle quadrant 2, and I was like,
do I have that right? He's 7-2 in the morning line.
I think that's probably what he ends up as.
Yeah, I mean he's. I mean, I guess the big thing, you say, oh, synthetic, but I guess Ravelli helps that, right? I mean,
well, and he's coming. Yeah, I mean, he's finishing in the money and graded stakes races, like yeah.
And Ravelli is like. I mean, he's synthetic, right? Because he was an Arlington guy, right? Wasn't he for years?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So he knows how to get a horse ready for. So I'm less concerned about surface here at all. So I'm thinking this horse is going to transition. So I think he's legitimate. I mean, I don't know if I want to take 7-2.
No, I don't even know if they are legitimate because I think going into the Risen Star, one of the questions with this horse from Ravelli was distance. So,
yeah, but I could see him maybe. Yeah, it could be. But this it's a different kind of race than the Risen Star. Right? This is a step down. He's dropping. Even though
which isn't a positive sign either. I mean, it's not a sign of confidence.
Oh no, not a comp. Well, it's just. Where is the horse going to do his best, and where is he going to get some points and get some confidence back?
Yeah, I feel like at this point in the game, that's not a positive. It's just not a positive sign.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing is this. I mean, just this guy on the surface is like dynamite. I mean, it's like 28% on synthetic. And I'm not a big trainer statistic guy, but. I remember all those years. He's won a lot of these stakes races on this surface. There's not too many trainers that train for a long time on these surfaces that really know. Like, I guess, I guess some of the people Woodbine and stuff. But anyway, the one thing I agree is 7-2 is not what I want.
No value.
I thought this was a young developing horse. I didn't. What did you think about this one? I mean,
well, this is another one that I thought when we were talking about kind of horses that are going to take money. This has to be one of them because he's improved on the synthetic like in a big way.
Yeah.
I mean, A-, B+.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he's not. This is the first time he's in any kind of stakes competition. But I mean, look at the Optix fig range for the last race. It's pretty good, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he's 8-1. What do you think? Higher or lower?
I'm looking at that race. Scooby Quando came out of that race. Came out of that February 11th race. And a bunch of other horses I've never heard of. For what it's worth, but some like also rans. But what were you asking? Higher or lower?
Yeah.
I think this horse will be. I think 8's probably fair, and I think he'll be shorter, just based on the connections and those most recent races. To be fair.
And I don't know. I mean, it's looking like that Churchill race was an outlier for this horse. For me, this horse is 15-1. I think he's much higher. First time synthetic.
Yeah. Velasquez. Why is Velasquez on this horse, though?
What's that?
Why is Velasquez on this horse?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Because Velasquez has been riding he's been riding all those Baffert horses. Oh, but the American Night horse. But even still, he has plenty for Baffert. What is he doing here? Oh, he's riding a bunch of races on the card. Okay. All right, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this horse improving, no doubt. But I don't know if it's, it's kind of a tough post. But the only thing is that if there's not a lot of speed on this horse probably he's going to be forward, but he's going to get caught wide. That's for sure.
See,
Velasquez is going to get caught wide.
They're definitely going to get caught wide. Yeah, this is tough. I mean, yeah, it's kind of tough. Couple comments in here. Sure. Going back, DJ _ I heard Asmussen thinks Disarm is considered to be more talented than Red Route 1. Let You Race might start off nicely in here. Okay.
I think Red Route 1 is like I'm a little, because we picked him a couple of times now, and he's run pretty well, but I just don't like the fact that he leaves too much to do, and I'm just not sure of like 10 furlongs.
Yeah, no, I think people have to learn how to separate those two things, right? Like when you and I are like handicapping races, like we're looking at this race that's happening like now, right? Like not what's happening down the road. So Red Route Road fitting in those races, but not necessarily being kind of the best horse, just happened to be in the kind of best spot for that individual horse, right? Where Disarm could end up being better at this point. Like he's unexposed, like at this point. He's only gotten better race to race. So yeah, I mean, sky's the limit on that. Where Red Route 1, we've sort of seen him.
Yeah.
He's shown us who he is at this point. Yeah. So I could see that for sure. And then David Bracesta, you think with a lack of pace in Louisiana, that would have been a good fit. You're talking about Two Phil's, I'm assuming. That would have been a good fit. He clearly wants to get into Two Phil's Rebellion. Yeah. That's kind of what I think too. I feel that I respect, John, what you're saying as far as synthetic and being a synthetic specialist. And I think maybe that's sort of the crutch of landing here. But I think in overall, at this point, not being a positive sign in running here, like, trying to find a softer spot. And I don't like that, especially if you think your horse is good enough to make it to the Derby. Like this is something that happened with that Cyberknife horse, right?
But
when they ran in the mile because they thought that the Classic was going to be too tough, and then the horse like clunked in the Pegasus. Like, I don't know.
But I think this horse has some points though already, right? So he's got the Lecomte second, you got the Risen Star, you got a third. I think if you go that Risen Star, if that Risen Star, I mean, if the Louisiana Derby came up a little bit softer, a smaller field, maybe it would have went that way, or this horse maybe has like the Lexington if he doesn't win, and maybe this is he's got maybe just leaving some more options because he already has some points.
Yeah.
And this guy being so good on the surface, maybe he sees this race as just kind of like he can kind of punch his ticket with this race. And I'm not
Possibly.
even sure he can because I don't even know what's the points on this one.
Oh,
It's probably light, right?
good question.
But he does have a third and a second, so he's got some points. And so I would try to like compare if he wins this race versus a third in the, let's face it, he's not intent wise. He doesn't think he has the Derby winner right now. He's trying to get into the race.
Yeah.
So it'd be different if like, hey, I've got so much confidence I got the winner that I'm going to go. I don't think that's the case. I think getting in the dance is probably, for some of these connections, it's kind of cool. I know everyone wants to win, but let's be realistic. One out of 10,000 horses win every year. So getting there is kind of exciting, and you never know on the day, right? Look what happened last year. You just never know when you get there. Was it last year? I kind of lose myself. It was the year before, I guess, right?
No, last year was Rich Strike.
It was last year. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like sometimes it's like impossible to find.
Yeah, those points.
Yeah, like where? Can there just be one place? Okay, here we go. What is this thing? Stakes?
This is the Jeff Ruby.
It's a 100-point race.
Yeah.
140, 30, 20, 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So, intent wise, I think this is. I think this is a good move, actually. If you think the horse could run on the surface. Has he been training on this surface? Yeah. A lot of works. This horse lived here, obviously. And they shipped him in, so. And those works look good. Like they kind of look like, he's kind of primed for a big effort. So I'm liking this horse more now.
Okay. I think is that everybody? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Cool. So next week is a big week, right? Well, we have I think it's the Florida Derby, right, coming up?
Yes.
And I think Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, or next week. So that should be fun. Right. And probably going to be doing.
Arkansas. Well, the Sunland Derby is Sunday. Arkansas Derby, Florida Derby.
And then the following week is the big one: the Wood Memorial, the Bluegrass, and San Anita Derby.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's the big one. That's kind of the final. Well, the final one's Lexington.
Yeah.
Which is the week after. So, so pretty cool. I think if you've been following our prep races, you've done okay. Some good advice Emily's been giving you. So hopefully we continue it this week. And it's fun. It's fun to watch these horses develop. And do you have a favorite yet still, Emily? I know you have your Derby pick.
No, I don't. I don't make picks. And again, I don't necessarily like. I wouldn't even say Sun Thunder's my pick. It was just kind of like, here's a horse that I think is gonna. Part of it is picking a horse that's gonna make it there, right? And I kind of looked at him and I was like, this is a horse that's gonna be brought along the right way. That at least he's got a chance to be one of 20. So now I've narrowed that down. So now if I'm alive with the number that I think is, fair, and as one of those 20 horses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying that's kind of my point with the 11. You get there. Getting there is kind of half the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you got to be strategic there. So I'm looking at the 11's plot here. It's pretty good, actually. He's kind of like the other square in quadrant 3, kind of.
Oh, the 11? The 11 I have no problem with. I was talking about the 10.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I meant the 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I meant the 10. I get these numbers all confused in my head. Age. Yeah, the 11's got a pretty good plot there too, though.
Yeah. And the 11 has the synthetic form, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. The other
Right.
thing I said is, did you want to talk anything more about these races or what?
No, I'm done. I think we kind of covered them in detail.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention, if we've got some people in the chat, I did tweet out if people wanted to ask about NHC since I was out there, and like if some people watched the coverage, or even I know there's a couple people in the chat that were actually there. Sheldon played. I don't know if anybody else in the chat was there, but speak up. You can type a Y or say hello or something if you were there. But I mean, John is also NHC champ. We have a NHC winner, so any questions about that? But it was it was a good weekend. I hadn't been the last time I was there was 2019. I didn't go the COVID years, and I'm okay with that. So it was nice. It was nice to be back and just see a lot of people and kind of be in that tournament space, because it is, just being in that room is like, it's always been exciting. It's always been excited for me. I like remember like the first time I went and played like a live tournament, which was like maybe like a fall classic or something, like at the Orleans, which was like nothing on the level of the NHC, but still I like went in that room and I'm like, oh yeah, this is my shit, man. I'm like,
that first race.
This is cool. I'm into this. So, yeah, it's nice being in there.
That first race, your heart is like pounding. Like your first bet. Your first race that you make a selection. It's like your heart is pounding, man.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see like how people like get. You can see like who's got a chance right from the get go. First few races, you can tell who kind of digs in and who kind of gets down, and who's kind of on to new things after the first couple of races.
Well, this and this year was so weird. It was such a weird kind of year, as well, just in terms of thank you, Gregory, thank you for watching. Because the Friday being day one, right? Because the NHC is billed as a 3-day tournament, but it's only a 3-day tournament if you make it to day 3, right? Otherwise, it's a 2-day tournament.
Right.
So, like, it's pretty much, it can almost be a day 1.5, because if you're nowhere, you're done cakes, right? So, in like mathematically, you could be done. So Friday, the first day, Golden Gate had canceled early because of weather, and then Santa Anita, I had projected that Santa Anita was going to cancel, and they ended up canceling the morning of, right? So it condensed everything, right? Because you had like Laurel, Aqueduct, Gulfstream, Tampa, Oaklawn. I think that's everybody, right? So from those tracks on a Friday, which you're getting like 8-9 races, right?
Yeah, not for nothing, but those races, I mean, they were bad. The whole weekend, it just, they were not. And I think you could tell by the scores. It seemed like light, the scores to me.
Well, there wasn't even there wasn't a single horse that was a cap horse, like a true $64.
Wow.
Which is wild, right?
Yeah, it was like, man, it was just hard to come up with stuff. I was kind of looked at that day, and I was like trying to pick stuff. I'm like, I'm done. I went and did something else. I just couldn't come up with anything. It was just such a dull kind of, it's just the way it goes, I guess. Well, the other thing is they used to have this contest on a different week, right? So, we used to have it like, I think sometimes with that Florida, California thing used to go on. That was, kind of the year I played. They always had like big races, big things going on, big fields. And maybe it was just the selection, like the new day, maybe hurt it a little bit. But, sometimes it's just random. But I don't know, something to think about. It just kind of was a dead weekend too. Like, because we had nothing. It was like you had the Tampa race, and that was kind of it. And that was disinteresting.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, because it also just changes, like, one, getting those price horses in, getting those cap horses in, just creates so much. It creates so much, like, it can create chaos, obviously, in the leaderboard, right? Because you hit one of those and you're right back in the mix, right? You only put up $20 in day one, and like, early on you hit a cap horse. But it also, just in terms of like in terms of playing, right? When those cab horses start flying in, and if you don't have them, it's like, you're kind of like,
Yeah.
it rattles you, right? Because everything just starts going, especially on Saturday when everything's kicking off at once. I mean, I've been in there where it's like, 40
The
to
other
1 here, 35 to 1 there.
Yeah, like people screaming, like
Yeah.
The other thing is that there was 2 or maybe even 3 people with 2 entries in the top 10. 2 guys, I think was.
Yeah. And
So
then
that tells me
we're
too.
hitting like 50% of their tickets.
Yeah, that tells me too that it just they had a good day. They kind of played probably similar tickets, and it carried them because it was like it just wasn't there. It was just weird. Hats off to the winner. It's always whatever it is. It's such a grind, such a tough thing to win this thing. So much pressure. Much more difficult than in my day. But so my hats off to the winners and all the people that did well, because that's the toughest contest. I know it's different than the Breeders' Cup and all the rest, but it is a much harder contest to win, in my opinion.
Harder to win, right? Because there's so much, because like with
so many layers to it. I mean, it's like
you
gotta go through this, you go through this.
Yeah, I mean, with Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, it's like you don't have to you don't have to have a bunch of winners. You just have to be able to construct a smart bet at the right time, right?
And you only need one to win that race.
Yeah.
Win that kind. One. You can't do that. You can't do one in the NHC. Can't do one. Doesn't work. You got to be consistently good for 3 days, or lucky, or whatever you want to call it. But you have to be it for 3 days.
Yeah.
And the pressure ramps up at every round, and you're exhausted. Like, this. I mean, you've played this. It's the most exhausting tournament because it's just you're trying to find like a needle in a haystack. Where you could be a lot more broad brush with the Breeders' Cup. I'm not saying that like I never won the Breeders' Cup, but I'm just saying you just look at history, how that tournament's usually won. It's usually won on a big bet. You got to be bold, take a big shot, and but again, they both have different skill sets, but I just think it's much more of a grind, much more difficult these days to win the NHC.
It's I mean the point of stamina just can't be referenced enough. And there's a lot of people I talk to that that are shipping in early. Like that's like a common thing, like getting into Vegas like on Monday, right? And like getting
acclimated.
Getting acclimated because it's like a change, whether you're coming in from a different time zone or just being in a different place or whatever. But when I was doing the prep work for the show and working with like the producers who aren't from like the tournament world, right? And they're like, well, who do you want? Think about the people that would be like good at the final table, like, and they throw out a name or something. Like, I honestly I can't tell you because I don't know what that person's gonna be after 3 days of playing, right? Yeah. That person can be so on tilt. They're on a flight out Saturday night. Like, I have no idea. I have no idea. The most quiet person that you've never expected could be, in just a good mood and like ready to talk. Like those 3 days, it's, anything can go. I mean, John went up to me. I had like bags under my eyes for 2 days. Like John Walsh at Hawthorne. He's like, "You look tired." I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm tired. Like this is work. This is hard." I almost missed my flight. Do you want to hear this story?
Sure.
Okay. It's kind of a fun story. It does involve breaking a couple laws, so I'm going to be careful as I'm telling this story, but I'll keep it fun for those that are here. So I made my flight out early Monday morning, and I'm like an early on time person and like early morning, so like that wasn't a concern to me at all. Like I had all my stuff like sorted, packed, all ready to go, easy. Checked out in the cab, airport, no problem. There's like a long line in security, but I'm like, plenty of time. My flight is in an hour and a half. Easily get through this. Maybe I can do some trip notes while I'm waiting for my flight. So as soon as I get up the stairs, I like realize I'm like, I left my roller luggage bag in my room. Because I had been carrying all weekend long, like my computer bag and then like my purse, right? And which is like some pretty heavy shit. So like I felt like I was like I had all my stuff. And so I'm like, oh my God. Like, and then I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, I gotta go like right now. So
You went back?
out of the airport, which is,
oh man, I would have just
right?
called the hotel and tell it to ship it to me.
Well, I was already like thinking like plan 1, plan 2, but I'm like, I think I can make it. I think I can make it. So one of them, I had to like deal with one unjust hierarchy in order to get outside of the thing. So I did that. And then I'm out like where, you know, the cabs are dropping people off, right? Because at the departures. And so somebody's getting out, and I go to the cab driver, and I was like, I left my bag. Like, can you take me? He's like, get in right now, because you're not supposed to pick people up. So I'm like, poop, right in that cab. We're off to the races, right? So I'm like trying to get a phone number, trying to call them, like, hey, I left my bag. Like, let's have it ready, and then I can get a cab, and I can make it, no problem. So talk to the front desk. They're like, okay, yeah, security will do it. They'll bring it down to the bellhop thing. So I go down, I'm like waiting at the bellhop, and he's like, oh, security? He's like, that could be forever. Because security just is like, they're at their own pace, like, you know, type thing. And I'm like, oh my God. And when I was like 20 minutes, and I like got to the point where I was like, I'm like sick to my stomach. Like I'm about to throw up. Because I'm like, this is, if I get my stuff right now, I'm like, I'm in with a shot. Like I'm in with, like I'm not 3 to 5, but I'm like, I'm fucking good 12 to 1 that I can still make this thing. Right. And so, like within like a few minutes of that, he like gets a call from the front desk, and she's like, I canceled the security because like normally the bellhop is the one that will grab the stuff. Right. And this guy, man, is like fucking flight line. He is like running, grabs the keys. He's like, you know, 34 and change, like up the thing, back down. Meanwhile, another homie is another like check-in like bellhop guy. He's recognized this situation. He's like, you're gonna need a cab. So he goes out to the street, gets his cab, like goes to like this secret door, this like garden thing, like opens up, pulls the I mean, if we were doing like a heist, like this is like my team. I'm like, this is my team. Like
the Ocean's 11 here.
We're gonna get the prize, all right? So cab comes around, flight line comes back down the stretch, got all the stuff, it's in the cab. Then like I'm telling the cab driver, like, you know, the situation of like, you know, it's on, like, I'm like, this is on me, you know, like I did this to myself. He's like, I'll do my best. Another unjust hierarchy is we need to make a right-hand turn, get to the airport, and then I get up there, and like I had like an A boarding pass, but I got on like ride is like B130, and
right.
like, you know, right on the thing. Boom.
If you had to write that up in trip notes, what would it be? A lot of bursts.
Tactic minus.
Traffic. Trouble plus.
I mean, tactic minus, but everybody like up the working class, man. They like bailed me out because like they came through. Oh, and then because I did have to kind of hop a barrier on my way out of the airport the first time. I wasn't like through security or anything, but I was like, you know, in line to check out. So it wasn't like I like broke any laws or anything, but I'm sure like TSA was like, that's pretty odd. There's somebody who just like, you know, on their own measures just running out of the airport. So there was a guy checked repeatedly. I see in the comments. Yes, for sure. There was a guy as I was coming back through that like gave me a long TSA stare, and I was like, all right, we're good at this point. But,
yeah, Sheldon, you can't win on day one, but you could lose. Yeah, that's true. That's so true. And with the quality of racing, it's becoming a grinder. Yeah, it is becoming a grind. That's exactly right. It's a grinders tournament. That's hard. Grinding is hard.
Yeah.
You know, because all right, I think we got it covered. So I think next week I'm going to do in focus the the Florida races, like the pick 6 or something like that.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to go through the pick 6 maybe next week, or we'll do the Florida Derby and the but maybe we'll hit one or a couple of if they're good races,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll hit some races in that sequence too.
Okay.
Including the Florida Derby. So it'll be the same bat time, bat channel.
Sounds good.
Okay. Great job, Emily. Glad you're back. You're intact, ready to go.
Yep. And check out the videos if you haven't already on the Hawthorne channel. Everybody's in the chat. John, if you haven't checked them out, it's really good information.
I saw it. Yeah, I thought it was great. I did watch it.
Thank you.
Those guys. I just felt their pain. I just felt like they looked exhausted. A lot of those guys.
Well, it resonates with the crowd. That's for sure.
It does, because like you're saying, if you've really been through it or want to be through it, it's reality TV. It's true reality TV. At its best. So check it out. All right, everyone, and remember quadrant 3, empty quadrant 1, square. All right, everyone, take care. End the broadcast now.